Hey everybody, this is my 55-gallon tank, and I apologize for the odd angle, but my waterfall tank prevents me from standing directly in front of this tank, but you get a pretty good idea of what it looks like at the moment. So this is just going to be a before and after video. I'm going to finally get in there and do a little bit of work. When I turned the lights on this morning, the first thing I noticed, mainly because I was looking for it, was this dead fish down here on the bottom, and that is my diamond tetra that has been struggling with a swim bladder issue for weeks and weeks, probably several months now, and it has had to swim continuously in order to stay up off the bottom. And the last couple days when I've turned the lights on in the morning, it was literally lying on its side on the bottom. I thought it was dead, and once the lights came on, it got up and started swimming around, and so I let it be. And of course, this morning when I turned the lights on, no such luck. It was finally dead. So I need to get in there and get that cleaned out. I also need to do a little bit of gravel vacuuming. The pleco poop is not piling up too much, but if I'm going to be in there with the siphon, I may as well try to get some of that out of there while I'm in there. Now, the thing that I'm still kind of on the fence about is whether or not I want to mess around with that green cyanobacteria you can see growing on my Anubias. It's not harming anything. It's not making the tank less safe or unhealthy. It's not making it dangerous for the fish or me. I get a lot of questions about whether or not cyanobacteria is safe for humans. There's probably thousands of different species of cyanobacteria out there, so I'm sure some of them are, but I've certainly never experienced any ill health effects from the cyanobacteria growing in my fish tank. Again, if cyanobacteria was dangerous, we'd all be in a lot of trouble because the stuff is everywhere, all around us, all the time. So I'm not worried about it from a safety point of view, but it just looks ugly. It just, it's these big sheets of dark green stuff that clearly look like they're not supposed to be there. However, the thing that's got me concerned about whether or not I want to mess around with it right now is in a little while I will be doing a chemi-clean treatment on this tank, and that will kill off a lot of the cyanobacteria that's in there. Now, prior to doing a chemi-clean treatment, I will get in there and physically remove as much of it as I can at the time. The less of it that's physically in the tank, the less you have to kill off, the easier it is to treat. But at the same time, when you disturb this stuff and you really stir it up and get it swirling around in the water, you're just asking for trouble. You're going to spread that stuff all over the place. As I've said before, you make it angry. It gets everywhere. So if I was getting ready to start the chemi-clean treatment, that would be one thing. It wouldn't really matter if it got angry because it would be angry in a tank full of treatment. If I do it today and I get in there and really mess around with it and start trying to scrape it off the leaves and siphon it out of there and I make it angry, then it's going to be all over the tank and it'll make it much more difficult when I do get around to cleaning it, with the chemi-clean. And so I'm still on the fence. I really do want to try to peel some of that out of there and siphon some of it out, but I really feel like I'm just setting myself up for problems, not too far down the road if I do that. So we'll have to wait and see what I ultimately decide to do once I get in there. So that's about it. I just wanted to give a fairly comprehensive look at the tank before we get in there and get started working on it. So let me get back in some kind of position where we can set it up for your before. Your before, and there's your after. So it's only been about 15 or 20 minutes since I finished up, and there's still a lot of detritus swirling around the tank, and mostly you can see a lot of air bubbles still all over everything from where I sprayed that little bit of hydrogen peroxide. So first, let me address the fact that I very clearly got in there and cleaned up a bunch of that cyanobacteria, as I had discussed in the beginning part of this video. Once I got in there with the gravel vac and I started scrunching down into the gravel and everything, I realized that for as much of it that is in the gravel, and that included all the way into this far corner, if you look in that back very carefully, you can see a lot of little green flecks and flakes, and that was all growing down all over the substrate. So my concerns about disturbing it too much on the surface of the plants was kind of a moot point, considering how much I was going to disturb it all in the gravel and get it all swirled up and swirled around anyway. Remember, we're talking about something that's on a cellular level. I don't have to have big green clumps of it hanging off of leaves in order for it to establish and start growing there. A single cell can reestablish somewhere else in the tank and start growing again. So once I had started getting in there and doing that, I decided I may as well just go ahead and have a go at it. If nothing else, it'll make for interesting video as we watch what happens. If we see an explosion of the cyanobacteria in the tank, as I'm sort of expecting, but maybe not. And I just thought, why not? I'm somebody who doesn't mind, and I'm prepared to deal with it if it happens. So this will be a good way to see if that is you know, something that really does happen. As I've always believed, if you get in there and you mess around with that stuff too much, you can cause it to sort of explode in your tank. So we're going to find out if that happens or not. So that is the main thing I wanted to address. Otherwise, not a whole lot going on. I do need to get in here and do a little more regular maintenance on it. One of the things that I've mentioned before about the reason I test for nitrate is not so much that I care about the nitrate level per se. It's just to check to see what's happening between water changes and how much water I'm taking out, and whether I'm doing frequent enough water changes, and if the nitrate level continues to get higher and higher and higher over time, then I'm not doing enough maintenance. And in this case, this was our before level, which is pretty red, and then this is our after, which is pretty red. So when that's the before and after, and we're still dealing with something that looks like that, you know, I need to get in there a little more often and do some more water changes and clear this out. Again, it's got nothing to do with how frequently I change the filter. I've definitely decided that having that dirty canister filter does not contribute to a big spike in nitrate, but not doing water changes frequently enough will. And as you saw during the cleaning of the tank, the water flowing out of the spray bar was still pretty vigorous, and I was able to drain quite a bit of water out of it before I started losing pressure to the point where the water was, you know, not flowing properly out of the spray bar. So I decided not necessary to get in and worry about the filter. The other thing I noticed is this fish right here, right on cue, has a white spot on the base of its caudal fin, and I don't have any idea what that is. I've never seen something like that on a fish before. When I first noticed it a few minutes ago, and I really feel like I should have noticed something like that long before, I thought it was like a fin, a scale that had been knocked loose or something, and I was getting a weird reflection from an odd angle or something. And so when I looked more closely at it, it is definitely something white, and it is definitely sitting proud of the fish's body. It's a big swollen, now that I'm looking at it close, you can even see redness around it. So it is a big puffy swollen spot. It doesn't look like a fungal infection to me, but I'm not an expert on fungal infections. But I just don't have any idea what that is. I've never seen a little white bump like that on a fish before. It almost looks like some kind of cyst or something. So I will be keeping a close eye on that. I may even get in there and pull that fish out and put it in quarantine. Although, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I usually don't do that because it's usually more stressful and hassle than it's worth. If that fish is infected with something, then I would need to treat this whole tank anyway. The only thing I can think would be is if that thing is swelling up with something that is eventually going to erupt out into the tank and then infect everybody. I suppose that is a potential outcome. I don't know. It's interesting. I've never seen a big white bump on a fish like that before, so we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Usually when stuff like that turns up, it either deals with itself and goes away after a while, or it gets worse and worse until the fish finally dies. So we'll have to wait and see what the outcome of this one's going to be. If anybody recognizes that or knows what that is, by all means, please let me know, because I have never seen anything like that in my fish keeping. And it doesn't seem to be bothering it. It doesn't seem to be doing anything unusual. It doesn't seem to be flashing or scraping up against anything, trying to scrape it off of its body. So I'm not going to be too concerned about it, but I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on it, as I said. So there you go, everybody. There's your before and after look at my 55-gallon tank. Make sure you subscribe. That way you won't miss any of the potential drama that is going to unfold as we find out whether or not that cyanobacteria explodes in the tank. And then, of course, if we find out if some kind of alien facehuggers don't explode out of the tail of my fish there and start wiping out my tank. We'll have to wait and see. So, all right, everybody, make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, this is my 55-gallon tank. Hope you enjoyed that one, and I will see you real soon on the next one.